Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Harne Podcast. Today, we talk about the domain of finance, and our focus will be on credit analysis. To talk with us, we have Shruti Srivastava, who is a credit analyst at RBC Bank in Toronto. Shruti tells us what is credit analysis, how is it done, why is it important, and how you can become a credit analyst as well. Now, if you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing, share it with your friends, and leave us a feedback in the comment section down below. Relax and enjoy this conversation with Shruti. Yeah, thank you so much, Shruti, for giving us your time today. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for asking, Raghav. How are you?
Good as well. And you are again a candidate who is not an engineer and from finance on my podcast. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And I think let's get this started. Please tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm right now working as an associate with RBC Capital Markets. It's actually the global credit division, and within that, I'm working within the ratings and monitoring team as an associate. So my role primarily involves credit risk assessment and analysis of our borrower companies that RBC has lent to. And on a day-to-day basis, I have to assess them on their credit worthiness and and kind of assess how the company would perform in any sort of downside situation. So that's my day-to-day job. Prior to this, I completed my MBA, which at Schulich School of Business, York University. It definitely was a very tough ride because I started pre-pandemic in September 2019, and then had to kind of take a break because of the pandemic situation that kind of lagged my MBA journey, and then I completed it last August 2021. Prior to my MBA, I was working with a rating agency called CRISIL, which is actually an S&P Global company back in India, in Mumbai for 4 years. I completed my undergrad in economics honors degree from Delhi University.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us your introduction. And like you said, the whole world took a break with the pandemic. So we have like two worlds, one pre-pandemic and one the post-pandemic, which we are in right now. So your job responsibilities, as you said in Crystal, were similar like to that of a credit analyst. You used to do credit analysis there as well. So in such a situation, then what prompted you to pursue an MBA?
So actually, MBA dreams was something which was even before I started working. So when I was in my second year of my undergrad, that's when I actually decided that based on my own personality and my liking towards economics. I mean, I used to like economics as a subject. I enjoyed that as a subject, but I felt that I do not want to pursue a master's degree in economics. Rather, I want to do something which is more holistic, something where I will have more personality development, something where I would be able to complement my skills that I had identified back then. So that's why I kind of thought that I would want to do an MBA. I wanted to pursue it from a foreign university. That was also something that I had on my mind back then. So then I thought that rather than like kind of pursuing a master's, I need to get those extra, like those years of experience, because that's what is counted when it comes to an MBA in a foreign university. So that's something which kind of that's why I kind of paved my path in a way that yes, I started working directly after my undergrad and wanted to get relevant experience, and then once I got into the rating agency, I kind of got to know about finance more. My family, nobody is from this background, so I did not really have any direct exposure in terms of what kind of career paths exist or what all opportunities exist. So it was something which I had to kind of see it for my own and then take it forward as and when and as I felt like pursuing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that is why you will be an excellent guest for this podcast because a lot of people don't know about the domain of finance, and credit analysis is just one of the designations which people can target in finance. So you are the perfect guest for that. So you said in your answer that you wanted to pursue it from a foreign university always. Why was that so important to you? And then a follow-up question to that would be, why did you then choose Schulich as that university?
Um, I guess it's a combination of different reasons that why I wanted to do it from foreign university. As a kid, there were 2 years when I lived in London, UK. At that time, I had seen how the universities are like, how the culture is like. I was exposed to that kind of environment where I got to meet people from different backgrounds. I mean, I was a kid back then, but yes, my elder sister was there. My father was working there, so I used to have conversations with them, and I used to see the kind of work ethics they used to follow there. So that kind of just prompt like sowed that seed in my mind that yes, I want to study abroad and I want to work abroad. And I think that's why it kind of like it made more sense for me to kind of get that ball rolling, and that's why a foreign university. To answer the
I'm
question on
I'm like, just to interrupt you for just a
sorry.
second. How old were you when you visited London?
I was, I think, 11, 12 years old at that time. So it was
Oh,
it was pretty young.
uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, because I had an elder sister, she was 5 years elder to me. My dad was working there as well. He was actually he was an Indian representative at the Kew Gardens. So there is the Royal
Okay.
Botanic Gardens in London. So he worked as a scientist over there. So he told me about how the culture is, what kind of difference he used to see with respect to the Indian work culture. And not saying that anything I just wanted to get that exposure of working with different set of people and come for people from different academic backgrounds, professional backgrounds, not just from India but across the world.
Yeah, and as you said, like no experiences are good or bad. It's just different. So you wanted to experience that, and that makes sense. And before I interrupted you, you were about to tell me why Schulich. So please continue.
Yes, why Schulich? So I think, I mean, when I was applying for universities, US was definitely one of the prime options, or like prime locations I wanted to go to, but because my sister is based out of the US. But at the time it was very difficult to kind of think about prospects after the MBA. So it's an expensive program, first of
For
all,
sure.
and then the immigration policies are more restricted in the US. So that was also a factor which kind of told, like I was kind of backing out of the US. And MBA again is it's a non-STEM program, so you don't get like a longer term work permit as well. Even if I would have bagged an opportunity, I would have got a 1 year work permit. So that kind of those immigration policies and the kind of expense that was involved with the an MBA in the States were the factors that kind of took me to other countries. I mean, in terms of location, Australia was an option, Canada was an option. I felt Canada was probably the fact that it's closer to the US. Maybe that was one reason. And then and like Australian universities were not something that I had explored a lot about. So yeah, I kind of restricted myself to Canada, and then in Canada, I tried to target the top universities as much as I could, and I was able to get the opportunity with Schulich, I kind of started my MBA in the India MBA in India program.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I mean, just curious, you said you were 11 or 12 when you visited London, and that left an impression on you. So, while considering business schools, did you not target any business schools in Europe or England specifically?
From what I knew, again, the work policies, the immigration policies were difficult at the time when I
Because of
was applying,
Brexit.
because of Brexit.
Yeah,
And Europe is very difficult in general because of the language difficulties. You need to know the
correct.
language when you are working, if you want to work in Germany or France or Netherlands for that matter. So that's why those countries kind of become restricted. Either I should have like taken it up and actually try to learn the language and then try to go there, or else it would have become very difficult in a non-English speaking country. UK again very restricted in terms of the work policies at the time. Now they have started to improve their policies. From what I've heard, I have not really explored it, but I've heard so. So I guess that's why then Canada seemed like a good option. Its immigration policies are also smoother. You can work here more like easily, transition to a permanent resident, and then citizenship as well if somebody wants that too.
Yeah, I think that's a very smart move on your part, and your decision makes complete sense. So now let's talk about credit analysis. You explained a little about it earlier as to what you do, but can you please dig in a little on that? What is credit analysis, and why is it so important?
So in the essential sense, credit analysis is the assessment of the credit worthiness of any company. So in the sense that when if I'm as a financial institution giving out a loan to any borrower client, we need to really assess that whether there would be any condition where they could default, whether there are situations where they're like because of economic trends, because of their own business profile, their own operating performance, would there be conditions where they would not be able to meet the financial obligations that they would be imposed upon on after the loan has been given out to them. So that's essentially what credit analysis is. Why is it important? Because obviously we are in a market where we are lending money to different companies. We need to assure ourselves, like basically make sure that we are guarded in terms of whether it's a collateral, whether it's any other form of whether it's in the form of a collateral, whether it's in the form of their performance, their operating performance, or any sort of guarantees that their subsidiary companies, their parent companies, that they're able to provide. So we need to basically essentially guard ourselves. Otherwise, we're just lending money out in the market and not ensuring that we'll ever get that money back. And something which was what we kind of know in terms of securitization of different bonds, and which led to the 2008 crisis. And that's just an example of what happened back then. It was a very complex thing that happened, but yes, it's essentially guarding yourself so that you don't default, like the companies don't default, and we are able to know that when we need to kind of either put more interest rate on them, or kind of get out of that, exit out of that transaction.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that. And as you said, it is very, very important, because if banks or lenders are not careful, then we might have financial crisis like we witnessed in 2008. I don't think we have fully recovered even now from that crisis. So it's very, very important. And your field sounds very interesting. So can you now please explain, you explained the purpose, why is it so important? But how do you actually do that? I mean, I know this podcast is very short to explain the full process, but a summary, a gist of how is it done?
So in the very like a very brief manner, if I have to explain, what we would essentially do is assess the business profile and the financial profile of any company in tandem with the macroeconomic conditions, so that we know where the company lands in terms of its competition, in terms of the market size, and essentially assess them on their business, on their operating model, their revenue model, their liquidity profile, and that in totality assess that yes, whether this company has the sufficient funds or the solvency to be able to meet any of their short-term needs. So that's essentially what we would do. And that's done using different sorts of financial models. We use projections, we use analyst consensus. Sometimes we have to rely on research reports to be able to benchmark benchmark our own analysis with the industry analysis. So it's a combination of all these different elements. And then of course, like internally also, there are certain things that we would have to do as a bank, as a financial institution. But in any field, wherever you're working, credit analysis would involve a deep, well-rounded research into the company with respect to the market, with respect to the macroeconomic conditions.
Correct. So say, for example, I am somebody who manufactures electric vehicles, and now I come to you for a loan. So you would then assess what the macroeconomic conditions in the market are right now, whether EVs are on demand, whether the demand is declining, how are my financials looking, and then make a decision based on that, and then would approve the loan or deny it. Is that a gist of it?
Yes, I mean essentially yes.
Mhm.
The approval or denial of the loan also depends on the bank's risk exposure as well, like whether they are willing to take that kind of exposure to a small entity or a large entity. There are other factors as well, like in terms of where the company is standing right now as a financial institution. But when it comes to giving out a loan, we need to assess these factors in terms of, like, yeah, like you said, if EVs are growing in the market and you're an EV, you're a manufacturer of components for EVs, that means that there is a growing trend for your company, and that would reflect in your projections, that would reflect in your financial models. And when that reflects in your financial models, it kind of flows through in terms of your cash flow generation, in terms of your liquidity generation, whether you need to take more loan in the future. If you keep taking loan and you don't have the equity against it, you're not able to generate that kind of operating cash flow, then it kind of becomes difficult for you to sustain in the long term. So
Correct.
it's both futuristic and historical. So it's not going to be ever one thing, one element at a time. But and that's why there is a lot of judgment involved in this role. It's not just quantitative analysis. It's not just looking at the numbers and yes, this is what it's going to be. There is an essence of qualitative judgment in this role.
Yeah, thank you for explaining it so beautifully. And like you said, it does not just involve quantitative skills, but qualitative skills and judgment as well. So, how does one develop those skills? And are there any softwares you use for doing your job?
So essentially, in my role, I don't have any particular softwares because, I mean, except MS Excel, because we have to run our financial models, and then yeah, internal softwares. But those are not like something which you can learn outside. Like it's not a programming language or in a sense. So because of the fact that there is qualitative judgment involved, nothing. It's not like everything can be automated. Yes, we are moving towards optimizing our processes. We are trying to automate certain aspects of our of our job in terms of reviewing. So you know that yes, we are doing peer comparison. So maybe we'll be able to automate that part because we have the same set of peers for like the same set of like we have a certain group of companies as peers, so we might be able to automate those parts, but it would be very difficult to automate everything, and it would be very difficult to run everything through a software program and not have that human element involved in this part of other role. um, so
I
yeah,
mean,
essentially.
especially in judgment, where judgment is involved, you cannot automate that. You cannot leave that decision up to a machine. So you're very right
Exactly.
in saying that. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's the whole idea when it comes to like in terms of being able to, the question that you asked, that how do you reach a point where you're able to make that judgment. I think it's a combination of experience. It's a combination of trying to assess different companies on different scale, different levels. So that essentially means that it will require time. uh, and of course, because this is a very because there are quantitative elements involved as well, so you do need that knowledge, that financial knowledge of how to do an assessment. That's why CFAs are an important like it's a good learning to have when it comes to this domain. MBAs in or a master's in finance, all these programs are very good to learn a lot about what financial analysis is all about, what credit analysis is all about.
All right. And so, like, I know you are a CFA level one. You've cleared that exam, and you are an MBA. So, how do these exams help you? I mean, CFA. You can talk about that first, and how did MBA specifically help you with your job which you're doing right now? What are the skills you learned which are helping you right now?
I think CFA is more technical based. So it's more like when it comes to having that knowledge of what analysis is, how the analysis should be done, that can be learned very well through the whole CFA level one, level two, three, like program, like that whole structure. Of those exams, because the subjects that we study during a CFA are, some of them come really handy in our day-to-day job, because we have reporting standards, we have to analyze accounts, we have to know the treatments that are supposed to be done when it comes to those ratio calculation, the EBITDA calculation. All of that kind of comes really handy through a CFA course, like the CFA exam studies. When it comes to the MBA, I think for me, MBA actually helped me understand more of the soft skills. For me, I think MBA was more about learning how teamwork is like, what kind of value add different people from different backgrounds can have during any project. So essentially, I would say that yes, in a credit analysis role, maybe my learning was more from my CFA and less from my MBA. But when it comes to working in a team environment, working in a corporate, working in a role where negotiations with the client could be involved, where you are where you're talking about business deals, where you're talking about transactions happening on a day-to-day basis. Right now, my role is not about it, but yeah, in the future, if anybody wants to tangent towards that, pivot towards a role where there is an involvement of client interactions, then these essential soft skills actually come really handy. And I think MBA really helps you achieve that through various projects. I mean, I don't even remember how many projects we have done during the 2 year program. So I think that really comes really handy. And when I look back before my MBA, the kind of way I used to look at any teamwork project and about any sort of presentation, those group assignments, it used to be a very different way. And now when I think about it, I have gained those soft skills. I've become very patient in life, I think, in general, and patient in terms of dealing with people, which I feel really comes handy when you're working in a corporate environment, and that too in a foreign country where people come from such different backgrounds and culture.
That is true. So, for somebody who is listening and does not have any experience in a financial domain, would you say to be a credit analyst, a CFA certification is mandatory?
I don't think it's mandatory. I would never say it's mandatory, because it's a it's definitely good to have, because of the CFA or because of your MBA or master's course. What you really are able to bring into your resume or bring into that interview is credibility. So it's basically the fact that your employer knows that yes, if this person has cleared like all the three levels of CFA, he definitely should be able to understand what financial accounts are, how to do financial accounting, how to analyze any account, how to do portfolio like assessment. He has basic knowledge of economics, of stats. So it's a combination of all those things that you're able to provide to your employer by having that CFA charter on your resume. That yes, I know my technical skills are up to date. What I can offer in addition to that is my like in addition to that, it's that element of what you're able to bring to the table. But through this charter, you're able to bring that technical aspect in the role, and give them a bit of trust that yes, they can hire you and you will be able to do your job.
Yeah, that's a great answer. But I mean, just to expand on that a little bit, so it's a nice to have. But if you don't have that charter, for example, so then how do you show to the employer that you will be able to do this job well? I mean, of course, coming with no background in finance and you don't have a CFA designation, what are the ways in which you can show to the employer that you can do this job?
I think it does become difficult then, because of or the other way probably would be starting at a more at a more lower level job like an analyst position, or and starting with internships. It's very important to have Canadian experience if you don't have the relevant certifications and relevant program knowledge. Like you don't know what, like if you have not studied anything in finance, or you have, then it would be more advisable to have some bit of experience through projects, through maybe freelance projects, maybe through internships. So then these things kind of add some credibility there, and then you are able to kind of show to the employer that yes, I've worked in this field. So I think it does become difficult if you don't have a degree or a charter. um, but but yeah, I mean, I think then I think those extra bits of effort actually will help you pay through the to get a job in a financial domain, in the finance domain.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a good segue into our next section, which is about the job hunt. So, what are some of the key words which employers look on when they look at your resume for a credit analyst? And how do you network for them?
I think keywords in terms of the resume, actually, that's a very difficult question when I come to think of it, because I kind of had a lot of those elements in my resume. I just had to refine them in a lot of in a more structured way.
So maybe you
But
could expand on that. Like, what were the elements? Because you already had some experience in credit analysis. So, what were the
yes,
things you had already? You could expand on that.
so I think for me, the some of the words that I would remember would be financial modeling, would be collaboration with different people, with risk managers, and credit analysis. That was something which I used to do, but I used to do it for financial institutions. So my sector was different at the time. Like right now, I cover natural resources, metals and mining portfolio, and back in India, I used to cover financial institutions. But the essence of credit analysis remains the same. It's just that we are covering a very different sector. So there were elements from that. Then I used to write rating reports. So writing comprehensive rating reports is one of my day-to-day jobs in my current role. So that was something which I had. And then I think the other elements that added on to it were part of from my internship that I did, which was more of a an internship with a rating with an angel investor group in Canada. So they were basically I was working with them for I started for 4 months and then kind of stretched it for an 8-month internship with them. That kind of added that Canadian experience on my resume. Even though I was working remotely with them for at least like for the entire 8 months, I never really met them in person. I started back in India, and then when I came to Canada, I kind of continued with them. But during that time, I was also involved in due diligence. I was involved in analyzing companies from which are literally very small companies. They're just they've just started revenue generation, and so those are very small entity companies and small size companies. So I worked with them. So that kind of added on to my resume. So it's a combination of the experience that I had prior to MBA and during my MBA that helped me. But I guess how to get a job, I think when they say that it's very important to do networking in Canada, that is essentially very true. um but there is, I think, in a way, you have to kind of keep doing it and learning through that process. I don't think when I started my networking back in my first year of MBA, which was back in India, and I used to have those calls late at night or at very abrupt hour of the day. But even like whenever I used to have those conversations, in the initial conversations, I really did not know what am I trying to achieve out of this networking. And everybody used to say you should network. But I never really got the hang of what networking should be at the time. But after doing those conversations multiple times with different set of people, what I essentially gained was the direction in terms of where I wanted myself to be. So I wanted to get a job with the bank. because I knew that banking industry in general is one of the leading ones in Canada. I wanted to work for the top, like I wanted to work for RBC because of a project that I did with during my first year of MBA during with Schulich at the time with RBC. So I worked with them at the time, and that kind of taught me about their culture. So RBC became a very big priority for me at the time. And then I think when I spoke to different people, they used to tell me that, okay, in a risk management role, maybe you need to learn software programming languages like Python and R. I I've never been very fascinated by software languages, so I did not really try learning those. But I knew where what kind of transferable skills I had, so I kind of started targeting those roles. Then I kind of got to know that, okay, if I have to look at more of a front facing role where I have to speak with clients, I do not essentially have that experience at the moment. But once I'll be able to get a job in the bank, I would be able to pivot more easily because it adds that credibility to my own profile, my own my role, how what I'm working at, where I'm working at. It adds that value to my brand. So I think it's everything working together that really led me to be able to get that opportunity, which kind of struck in the first attempt or first or second attempt.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we've all gone through that cycle of just because everyone is saying network, network, network. So you just request people for a coffee chat and you have no clue what you're going to talk about. So you've all made that mistake. But say, for example, someone reaches out to you now with all the knowledge you have on a coffee chat with a stranger who's looking for a referral. What are the things which you would look for in order to refer that candidate to a job designation in your organization?
I think I would look at some relevant experience, like some background with finance, because our role does require that level of understanding. Maybe some sort of uh, internship work in the domain. There would be some bit of element that would be required, but I think apart from that, I feel that the willingness to learn is always something that really matters to me. If you are willing to learn and you are able to put in that effort, you're able to show that yes, you are proactive and you are diligent in terms of what you want, what you are aiming to achieve, that really makes me want to look out for that person, and makes me want to refer that person. I also feel that a lot of time when people reach out to me, that there is a they lack a little bit of conviction. I feel that is something which, if you're in your second year of MBA, that should essentially be kind of parked. You should have more conviction in terms of the roles that you're identifying or looking at, because by that time you are trying to get that next opportunity and next job like you just want that job offer letter. So I feel that they should have that conviction that yes, this is where I want to work in, this is the domain that I want to work in, and rather than being fascinated by all the domains of finance, because finance is huge. And yes, you need to identify which works best for you, but by the time you are applying to a role and you want that referral, you should have the conviction that yes, I want to be in credit rather than corporate banking or investment banking. After that, yes, you can always pivot. That is something even everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to see how their career path should look like, but not at the stage where where you want a referral. I honestly feel that when you're asking for a referral, you should be more like that make sure that yes, you are really looking for a credit role.
Yeah, I think those are wonderful points. You need to be self-aware as to where you want to go
Yeah.
and not be wishy-washy that, maybe I'll go into this or that. I'm not really sure what I want to go into right now, especially when you're approaching that final year and your year is ending. And you need to show a willingness to learn. So which can be through maybe writing a sample report of what you do day to day, or some case competition in which you analyze some companies. So maybe you can show your willingness to learn through this. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, the first year is where you kind of talk to people just to get guidance. First year of MBA is essentially in what requires you to do that, because you should do that. First year of MBA is when you should speak to people from investment banking, corporate finance, treasury departments, audit, everything. Literally, you can reach out to people from all of these departments one at a time. But by the second year, by the final term, you should know that this is the role which really fascinates me, this is where I want to work. And then that professional can also guide you accordingly, because I would not be able to guide somebody who has all the different kinds of options open in front of them, and then they're asking me for a referral. So and then, yes, like you said, willingness to learn through samples of what they have done. Or I mean, I think that proactiveness, the fact that yes, you are willing to make that extra bit of effort, also kind of shows me that your attitude towards your work is professional. You are looking out to learn, you're out looking out to make a difference in terms of, as in a team setting. That also for me is very important in terms of your in terms of the way they are dealing with me when I'm having a coffee chat with them.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And now we've discussed networking and resume building. So now this is the time for interviews. So how are interviews for credit analyst positions conducted? What are the rounds? What type of questions are candidates asked? If you could throw some light on that.
So I think for me, I had in a sense two interviews. One was where actually the director reached out to me, and I was just having a phone conversation with her. But yes, so after that conversation, I had to write a case study for that recruitment process. So I basically was given a little bit of information about a company, which obviously a virtual, obviously a fake scenario. And then I had to present there to them the rating that I would want to give that entity, what was my rationale, what was my thought process there, everything in a one pager. So that way, in a sense, I was assessed for my technical skills, to put it in the easiest way. And then after that, I had one round of interview where I spoke to like people from the team and the director and like the team leads. During the interview process, I would say it was a combination of behavioral questions and technical questions. Technical questions would involve how do you reconcile EBITDA? What kind of ratios do you look at when you're looking at a company for the credit risk profile? What is your structure when you're looking at a company? Like what I said earlier, that you look at business profile, you look at their financial profile, you look at the market, you look at their competition, you look at their liquidity. So it's all of that they're going to ask you. And then of course the technical elements, like what kind of ratios are important, then how do you arrive at those ratios, because EBITDA reconciliation is a very complex thing to do. If you're missing out, like you can make any, as an analyst I can make any adjustment to the EBITDA for arriving at my adjusted EBITDA and then arriving at my ratios. So those kind of so they want to know your thought process when you're doing that, when you're doing your analysis. And in terms of the behavioral questions, I think it's something which I would say is common across industries, where they want to assess your attitude, where they want to assess what kind of sets in how you are able to show resilience, how you are able to work in a team setting. So they will throw questions at you and ask basis on a scenario, ask you what you did, how you managed that setting, and all of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And how does one best prepare for the case interview? Like you said, you were presented with a hypothetical scenario. So how did you prepare for that, and what are your tips?
So I think at that time I actually looked at the S&P methodology, because S&P methodology is very comprehensive, yet very structured. So that's why I followed their methodology to
Okay.
build my own one pager. So And I think that's where I draw that elements of business, financial operations, liquidity, solvency, all of that, and then basically assess the company on all these factors, do my ratio calculations, and then present it in a more in a structured format. Of course, there will be times you will not be able to get everything right. Maybe your analysis may not have been as accurate as you would have thought it to be, but I think the idea behind is what you are thinking and how you are thinking, that whole that analysis, like how you are assessing that company. And then I think I also got a lot of guidance from the person who I had actually spoken to first for the first time before I applied to this role. And so he really guided me through his own recruitment. So that's why this is where I say that networking really comes handy. It was it was that one coffee chat after those 50 coffee chats that really like took me to that role, and I was able to speak to somebody who was able to guide me in a way that helped me speak, like that kind of made those connections to get that final opportunity. That's why they say that right place at the right time actually kind of works. It works in mysterious ways. But it also kind of, it came because I spoke to so many people, and eventually I spoke to this one person who I thought that yes, he might be able to help. So whenever people apply to any roles, whenever you're looking out to get into particular team, it's you should always try to speak to somebody who is on the team, that
Okay.
very role or similar role, but he is, or who he or she who is on the role really will be able to up your game in terms of just applying through a resume or a cover letter. Because because we all know that there are hundreds of applicants out there. What really would make a difference is that you're able to prove to somebody that yes, I know this job because I because when I spoke to that other person, he told me that this is what you do, and that's what fascinates me, and that's what I'm interested to do. So that sometimes really helps people. I mean, even if I'm like, sometimes people also ask for reference in a very different domain of RBC. Yes, I'm working for a bank, but that would not really uplift your case when you're applying for a different domain altogether, probably like operations or marketing, because I don't have any credibility in that role. So I would not actually be able to have, like, even if I give you the referral, it would not help your case any which way. It would just be like the same as without my referral. That's what I would really feel. And that's why when you are speaking to somebody who is on the team, it builds your case. Maybe not in the first go, but in the second go, yes, they because they remembered people who have been referred to by somebody on the team, and they kind of go back to you if there is an opportunity. So it's just that sometimes it's a patience time test involved, but it kind of works out in the end.
Yeah, I think you made a very important point over there with the domain and the field in which you are working. So, like as you rightly said, you are working in credit analysis. So, if you refer someone in the venture capital space at RBC, it would not make much of a difference. So, usually people think of, yeah, I have a contact at such and such organization, so I can get a referral, but that's not enough. Is that referral actually in the domain in which you are interested? So that
Yes.
makes a lot of difference. And I think the only way to find out is to reach out to as many people as possible, because it's not mentioned in people's LinkedIn description that which team they are a part of. So you need to
Yes.
reach out more and more people, and just hope that somebody is on the team which is hiring.
Yes. I mean, like what I did, I remember was I was following this role, which I'm working in right now for a while, and then I saw that there were multiple postings of this role, so I knew that the team was expanding. I knew that this team is growing and there would be opportunities coming up because there was a hiring in one, like in May, and then again in June. Like, so the multiple hirings kind of give you the direction that yes, this team is hiring. Maybe it would be advisable to speak to somebody who is on the team. and when you actually speak to somebody, then they will direct you to somebody else. And that's what actually happened with me. Like, I was able to speak to a very senior person of the team who was leading the team at the time, and my resume went to her, and that really uplifted my case in the whole scenario. And eventually I had the relevant experience that helped me build my case. I was able to leverage that. But that does not mean that, yes, so that's why that one phone conversation, one coffee chat takes you to the right people and eventually gets you to the opportunity that you would want.
Yeah, that's very well said. And like you said earlier, that it's practice. When you're preparing for the case interview, it's practice and you have to do it. There's no skipping that. But are there any resources? Like, I know people in consulting have different books or blogs where they go and, they actually, it is, they are told how to break down a case and how to think about it. So for your role, are there any resources like that which exist or no?
I mean, it's very hard to pinpoint one, because sometimes it's a combination of different things that kind of help you out. Like, I remember sometimes I used to just go back to my CFA books to go through this the whole essence of credit analysis. Sometimes I used to go through those financial standards. What is the current standard? So I particularly don't look at, like, I would not be able to give a very like a constructive, like, our feedback on terms of what resources there are. But combination of CFA, combination of existing methodologies of credit analysis, um, having the knowledge of ratio calculations, fundamentals. I think it kind of goes down to the fundamentals, because if you know the fundamentals of how a company is to be looked at, that in itself is good enough, and then you can always learn things on the job. So that's why there is never a sector specific focus when it comes to credit. In the equity, it always has a lot more sector specific focus there, because you kind of build through your domain in a particular sector. Because you have to keep doing projections. You need to know what happens in that industry in and out. And that's why that I have seen at least this trend that a lot of people stick with the same sector domain in equity rather than in press credit, because I've kind of switched credit from financial institutions to natural resources and retail. Right now I cover both natural resources, that's metals and mining, and retail, and just general consumer products. So that transition is possible with credit analysis.
Thank you for that. And now that you've got the job, how are you liking Toronto? Because a major concern of parents when they're sending their daughters abroad is like, how safe is that city? So how safe is Toronto, Canada for women? What has been your experience? Because you can't speak for everyone, I know.
Yeah, I think in general, I've had a very good experience here. I have never really felt unsafe. I mean, in general, I've felt that, yes, there are, like, because there are people around there, and I've never really felt any sort of harassment or anywhere where I would be concerned about my safety. So in general, I feel Toronto is safe. Yes, I have heard there are crime rates increasing in the city now, but I don't think they're gender specific. So I feel that essence is there, that yes, I can say Toronto is safe. And in general, a good city to be in.
Yeah. And my next question to you is, like, you worked as a credit analyst in India and now you're doing the same or more job responsibilities here in Toronto. So what differences do you see in the type of work you got and the work culture?
So I think the major difference is actually working for a rating agency and working for a bank. Because here, while I'm working for a bank, I am able to understand the like loan transaction processes more intricately compared to what I used to do in a rating agency. Because in a sense, a rating agency is a third party who is just assessing a company for another bank. So and for us, it's there is a lot more accountability involved. I am much more accountable for my own portfolio and for assessing that yes, my portfolio, there isn't anything which is in a difficult in a default situation or is concerning. There are warning signals. uh, so that and also the fact that yes, I'm working with teams in risk management, I'm working with teams in corporate banking, so I know how the whole value chain exists now. And I think that's something which kind of helps you identify other opportunities that exist. Not like, I mean, credit analysis is something which everybody does in all of these domains. It's just the application of it is varies for every domain, essentially. So that kind of helps you identify what could be my next role, what where I could land myself in combination with my other skill sets.
Right? And the differences in the work culture.
The differences in the work culture, I feel, I mean, RBC, I can talk about RBC here, is extremely like, I feel the work culture has been very good so far. The very good part of RBC is they are very focused on career progression. So you would have a lot of uh, chats with your managers, with your mentors, where you will be able to have those networking within the bank, or get that guidance of what else can be done to improve your own skill sets, how you can contribute better. I think that essentially has been very good for me. I think that is not something I've had on a more frequent basis back in India. Like, yes, we do have it, but maybe more like an annual thing when you're doing your annual performance review, or after a certain period of time, because right now you're considered a lower, like you're considered like an early level job position. Here, I feel that they start thinking about your growth from the day you have joined the company, and they really kind of push you towards that. And I think we also have so many different committees within the bank which focus on diversity, on inclusion, on women empowerment, on like in general, growing in the field of finance. I think there are associations, committees within the bank which focus on all these bits. So I like that. I like that part of RBC culture.
So, I mean, you said yourself about RBC focuses on women in finance, and my next question is centered around that. So, there's a perception that women usually don't take up finance. Have you found that perception to be true? And if yes, then why do you think that is?
I mean, I would have to say yes, which is actually in a way unfortunate sometimes. I remember when I had joined my MBA, my cohort size was 50 people, and there was only like one girl who was in finance, which was in a way a little. It felt a little strange to be in that setting.
Mhm.
So I think with respect to like the part where women are few in this field of finance, I feel it's a combination of different factors. One would be there are very few women role models in the field of finance that you can actually look up to, who would be able to guide you through this career journey. Um, RBC does have a lot of C-suite women, so that's a really proud thing to feel and to be in that organization. And I think the other element which I feel is the work-life balance for women becomes difficult in general. That is also something because over the course of time, there are times when women have to take a step back in their career because of their family priorities. This is also is a factor which I feel is a reason why there could be a gap in terms of the male and female gender parity. And the third thing which I have experienced is the lack of male support. A lot of times I have always felt I felt that there were times when I was considered that I'm very opinionated, and that kind of made me feel that just because I'm voicing my opinions, just because I'm putting myself out there, talking in a setting where there are a lot more male, then I'm not. I could feel that yes, there were times when I was not, where my opinion was not valued on certain fronts. This is something which I have felt at certain occasions. It's definitely not the case that every setting that is a scenario. I don't think that this exists everywhere, but I feel that there is some essence of it, and probably that kind of discourages a lot of women to take up such roles. um, Sometimes people kind of relate it more on a stereotypical basis, that yes, female women should go into more like fields like marketing, where there is a lot more creativity involved and less of technical quantitative analysis. I think that trend is definitely changing now. uh, there is more exposure that women have now, and I think the fact that yes, in the next 10 years, 20 years, with more women already existing in the field, we would have more growth and progression with people in the C-suite or in the senior management, women senior management, being able to bring that change. I feel I have a women senior manager, so that has created this team, which where there are a lot of women within in my team. So I think that would come, but that change is slow. It is essentially, I feel that we do have that male dominant culture in this field. So I mean, yeah, these could be a few of the factors. Yeah.
But thank you for explaining that. And I feel that to address all your points, there are women like you who are coming up. You are a good role model for any girl who wants to get into the domain of finance. I'm sure you'll help them out and act as role models for them. And as you progress and as women like you progress, the other problem which you stated, that you are considered opinionated because you are in a room where the majority of people are men. So as more and more women, especially like you, come up in boardrooms, that hindrance will also go away slowly but surely. As I said, change is slow, but it is definitely happening. So
Yeah.
more power to you. My last question to you, Shruti, is, so you said that you overheard your father and your sister talking when you were 11 years old, and you had certain expectations that your life would be like that if you go to a foreign country and work over there. So have those expectations been fulfilled? Is your reality any different from what you thought it will be?
I always feel that like I knew this thing, that when you're living in a foreign country, a lot of things have to be sacrificed in terms of the comforts that we get back home. A lot of times everything is not available right away. There are a lot, you have to work hard here. It's not like everything will come to you much like we used to get back in India. So that is something I knew would happen. So I kind of got what I was expecting. In terms of my MBA experience, I did want a little different experience with respect to a more in-person experience, in terms of meeting people from different backgrounds, and academic and both academic and professional, and from their country of origination. So I think that was also something which I felt was missing for me. But in general, what I was looking out for was that the exposure to different sorts of different mindsets, where people talk about development, where people talk about growth. I think I'm able to see that here. Definitely, this is something which will, obviously, I'll be when I'll meet more people, I'll be able to get more understanding into that. But I think that's something which I'm seeing by meeting and talking to people in my professional setting, like, because there are people who are from China, from South Africa, from like from such different parts, from Philippines. There was actually a young girl who came for a co-op from British Columbia, just for 4 months, and she was very young, much younger than I am, and she was thinking about her career growth from such a young age, and I was so inspired by her. It's like I felt, and she was originally from Philippines, from what I remember, and that really inspired me, and that really made me feel that yes, we have such young people thinking about their career. They're thinking about so many different, like how to get the best resources from such an early age, and that for me was something to feel really proud of, because I was able to be in a setting where uh, people were thinking about making a difference. People were thinking about making that trying to do something for your organization, for yourself, uh, where people are talking about growth in general of your mind, of people around you. And that's what I think everybody wants to seek when they're coming to a foreign country: a better livelihood, a better way of living, and a more open mind. I think that's something which people should always have when they're coming to a country outside of India. We have very different culture, we have very different traditions. Um, I never say that you should let go of them, but you should also have that adaptability to accept how other people live, and have that inclusive behavior, and learn from such young people. Such a young person, and she's doing her undergrad, and she's thinking about 5 years, and I'm like, okay, I was not even close to it when I was that age. But yeah, I mean, I really feel thankful to be in a setting where I have such wonderful people around me to learn from.
Thank you so much for that. And it was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you had as much fun recording this as I had. So, more power to you. And I hope that 11-year-old who has the courage to chase her dreams always lives on.
Thank you so much, Raghav. That this was an amazing session. Very good questions, and I think I really feel this whole podcast and all can help a lot more people. And I wish you the best with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So,
you
if
so
you
much.
don't mind, I will link your LinkedIn profile in the description so that people can reach out to you if they want any further information apart from what we've covered. Is that okay?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. No problem.
All right. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
You too. Take.
And that was the episode for today. If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends as well. Until the next time, this is me, Raghavendra Harne, signing off. Take care.